I'm Brahm Resnik. I've been covering Arizona and U.S. politics for 12 News for more than 20 years. Democratic Senator Ruben Gallego was a hard no vote on ending the government shutdown. The Democratic base appears to agree with him. They believe Senate Democrats caved to Republicans. And the longest shutdown in U.S. history ended with a political defeat. Senator Ruben Gallego joins us now to explain his vote and much more. Good to see you again, sir.
Good to see you, Brahm.
I want to put a timestamp on this conversation. It is Wednesday, later in the day. The House is expected to take up the spending bill to end the shutdown. This drama could be over by Thursday. So, did your fellow Democrats cave to Republicans and President Trump to end the shutdown?
Look, I wished I could say that this ended the way I wanted to end it. My goal was to make sure that 24 million Americans, hundreds of thousands of Arizonans did not see their insurance rates premiums doubled. My colleagues that did vote, 8 of my colleagues that voted to end this shutdown, believe that they have a better chance at trying to solve the insurance problem by negotiating while the government's open. I disagree, and I think I hope to be wrong. I want 24 million Americans to have affordable health insurance. But I suspect that that's not what happens.
Suspect.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, there's Republicans have shown no inclination at all to help the Affordable Care Act at all. President Trump tried to kill it back.
Yeah, no, I get it. This is why my position was very strong the whole time that, shutdowns suck, right? It hurts everybody. But what's really going to hurt this country is when 24 million Americans are suddenly going to have their insurance premiums doubled. We're hearing horrible stories. Now, we have to December 15th now if these guys decide to get going. And if they want to have any chance of political survival next year, they're going to have to solve this. Everything's too damn expensive as it is right now. And now Republicans, through inaction, are going to raise insurance premiums on millions of Americans.
House Speaker Mike Johnson has said he's not going to have a vote, has shown an inclination to have a vote in this. So really, there's nothing there. So go back to your...
Then you'll be former House Speaker at that point.
So if you wanted to keep it going, keep the shutdown going, you're facing millions of people needing help with getting food, putting food on the table, a possible mess at Thanksgiving, the busiest holiday travel day of the year. Would you have kept going despite all that? Was it acceptable to keep going given some of that real pain and call it suffering at the airports?
Yeah, none of these options are great. As a matter of fact, we had been introducing different pieces of legislation, for example, to pay air traffic controllers, to keep SNAP benefits going. A lot of them were actually rejected by the Republicans and not even given a floor vote. So they understood what they were doing. They were putting pressure by putting as much hurt on Americans and hoping that Democrats, which some of them did, would crack. None of this is easy. None of this was ever going to be easy. But what we know from past shutdowns is that everyone gets paid back. You will, if you're an air traffic controller, if you're a government employee, you're going to get your checks. You're going to get paid back everything. Contractors too. What does not happen is when 24 million Americans lose affordable health insurance. 4 million right away. 24 million Americans are going to have to start paying January 1st, almost double the premiums. Now, I'm not talking a couple $100s. We're hearing stories of people that are going to have to pay $2,000, $3,000 more a month. And that's just something that we should not have ever put Americans in that position.
So you would have kept going, though, despite all that you described?
I would have kept negotiating and trying to find different ways to actually ease the pain that everyday Americans were feeling, right? For example, supporting bills that would have paid government workers, that would have paid air traffic control, that would pay out SNAP benefits, to make sure that there's a way for us to continue fighting while at the same time holding as many people harmless as possible. Again, none of this is easy. Right? Part of being in leadership is you have to make decisions like that. But I know, as someone that grew up poor, as someone that had to figure out how to make a budget, if you suddenly change the insurance premiums on so many Americans, these are families we're talking about, you're going to permanently affect them and the economy.
Should Chuck Schumer step down?
Right now, those decisions are always made after an election cycle.
If the election for leader were being held today, would you vote yes or no?
I'd have to wait and see to see what happens to the elections, because what matters for us, what power we have, is can we win back control? And that decision, and when we get together, according to our rules, is 2026, and then I'll make a determination then.
So November 2026 is when you'll look at this again?
Yes, yes. We're going to, because we need to figure out about whether we're going to be able to win or lose. And if we can't, we have to make sure we have enough fighting power to get there. Unless something drastically changes, those decisions need to wait till the midterm.
You say you want to keep going. Did he, as Senate Democratic leader, get rolled by a minority in order to end the shutdown?
I think that's, I think that's a very honest assessment. I think, from our conversations and conversations among senators who wanted to keep going and fighting for health insurance, to make sure people had health insurance, affordable health insurance, a lot of us felt that we were pushed by the state. And the Senate's a very different world than the House. If you decide to go on your own, it's very hard to bring them back. And again, the consequence of this is potentially 24 million Americans not having health insurance.
Now, you've taken a lot of heat for continuing to collect a paycheck through the shutdown. I think members of Congress are paid $175,000 a year,
yeah,
or so. Are you still collecting a paycheck, and how do you explain that to constituents and the folks we've talked about who have been suffering over these past several weeks?
Well, because it's all it's useless symbolism. Most of these senators are millionaires. Some of them are billionaires, right? Some of them have pensions. Some of them are living off Social Security. So they're not sacrificing anything. And I grew up poor. I don't need to make myself poor to understand and empathize what's happening, right? I understand how hard it is to make bills. I understand how it is to miss bills. But I also understand the importance of having affordable health insurance. So all these guys are saying, give up your paycheck. Are they going to give up their health insurance? Because they get some really good government-funded health insurance. All these guys that were, talking big game, come December 15th, when insurance premiums go up for 24 million Americans, they're still going to get their very well-funded government health care, affordable health care through the Affordable Health Care Act. And so, where was the empathy there? Where's the empathy when they dropped 60,000 Arizonans from SNAP benefits? Nothing. Where was the empathy when they dropped hundreds of thousands of Arizonans from Medicaid? Nothing. They get to keep their money, they get to keep their health insurance, and they're just playing games instead of just focusing on how to actually help people.
So you have no qualms when you're walking through TSA on the way back to Phoenix, to the airport back to Phoenix?
I talk to those guys all the time.
Making nothing.
I talk to them all the time. They know that I'm fighting for them because those families also need reliable health insurance. Also, let's be clear. These are the same Republicans that were fine when hundreds of thousands of government workers were getting fired all year. They're fired without any severance, fired without health insurance, fired without even any modicum of respect, and now they care about them. No. They only care about them when they can use them, right? But they don't really care about them in the long sense, because they were fine when the VA employees were getting fired. They were fine with air traffic controllers were getting fired. It's only now when it's convenient for them to be able to leverage that and stop people from getting health insurance that they pretend to care.
I want to go back to the Affordable Care Act, and it seems there's kind of a double whammy going on right now. It looks like the end of the enhanced tax credit on January 1st, which seems very, very likely to happen, is going to drive costs way up. At the same time, it's going to drive people off the exchange, which creates a risk pool, leaves behind a risk pool of people on it who are more expensive to cover. And so what will January look like, and what could February look like?
January is going to look really bad. You're going to have insurance premiums double. You're going to have probably 4 million people across the country that are just going to not buy insurance. Even if you're not on the Affordable Health Care Act subsidy, even if you're getting private insured, you're going to see your premiums probably jump next year, because when these people jump off and not have health insurance, they're going to start using emergency rooms. They're going to start using other types of aid that will end up driving costs up. And so we're going to see in a year where we're dealing with inflation, where food is more expensive, electricity is more expensive, housing is more expensive. The inaction of the Republicans and Donald Trump it will cause insurance premiums to jump for almost all Americans.
But more than that, is this the beginning of the end for the Affordable Care Act, given that double whammy, those two hits?
No, I don't think so, because
if it becomes unaffordable for many, many more people.
Right. Well, I mean, what will likely happen is that the Republicans are going to end up losing the 2026 election. Before, it was pretty certain it was going to be the House. With them doing this, they're probably going to also lose the Senate. And I think that gives us the opportunity to fight to at least bring back the Affordable Care Act for those people that need those enhanced assistance.
So a year out, that's a pretty big bet, isn't it?
I mean, if you've seen and talked to these people like I have, and I have,
I've heard from them.
They're going to remember who did not take care of them, and it was the Republicans such as Ciscomani, such as Crane, who basically allowed this to happen, that are going to turn around. They're going to remember who basically added thousands of dollars to their budget and take it away, $1,000 from the budget. And that's just going to be on the House side. On the Senate side, you have a lot of neat seats that I think are now going to be up in play, because you willingly decided to take away people's health care. And that's going to be a bad payback.
Republican critics often blame President Joe Biden for this fix.
They blame everything on Joe Biden. He's been gone.
But in this case, Joe Biden passed, and I assume you voted for, the enhanced benefits with the expiration date of January 1st, 2027.
Well, we didn't want to. We didn't want
2026.
Yeah, no, we didn't even want that. But that was.
But you voted for it.
Well, we voted for it, or else it wasn't going to pass at all. It was an either or. So, you never want to pull the rug out, right? And that's one thing that we're trying to communicate to the Republicans. Hey, let's negotiate. They have some legitimate things that I'd be willing to understand and reform. We could even do another, date certain where we have to come back and negotiate again. But this idea that Americans every day that are hurting right now are suddenly going to just have this sudden change without us having any off-ramp is just cruel.
But you could see this day coming.
We could see this day, which is exactly why we did what we did in terms of trying to make this at the forefront of issue. We tried to make sure Republicans negotiated with us. But how we got here is the only way that we could get them to go. We had to put a date certain. We're willing to do that again with our colleagues and put reforms in. But what we don't want to do is have 24 million Americans have their health insurance premiums doubled overnight.
Let's try to go some quick hits now.
That wasn't quick?
The Epstein files, new allegations about President Trump's knowledge of sex offender Jeffrey Epstein's activities with underage girls. Some indication based on emails released by the House Oversight Committee that he may have tried to get Ghislaine Maxwell to change. You've been on this. I think I saw a tweet from you just this past night on giving, or you talk about giving Mike Johnson information on this. Where does this end?
Well, where we want it to end, not as Democrats or as Republicans, but I think as Americans, is to hold people accountable. We have to remember that these men that preyed on these poor girls are still alive. They're still out there. And the fact is, they could still be preying on innocent girls. And the best way for us to do this is to actually stop this cover-up. Let's figure out who was involved, whether Democrat, Republican, or Independent. Doesn't matter who they supported. But hiding this is not good for the public. It's not good, certainly, for these victims. How they're treating Ghislaine Maxwell, moving her to a club fed, essentially, where she gets to take yoga classes and has an emotional support puppy. Where you have the Deputy Attorney General coming to talk to her about her testimony. These things smell bad. And the best way that we can kind of, I'd say, get rid of all doubt is to move forward and allow the public to actually make a legitimate understanding of what happened and why. The trial is over. Ghislaine was going through trial for the last couple of years. There was definite reasons why we had to keep witnesses, safe and secure. But now it's time for us to have a real exposure of who these, very elite pedophiles are.
According to a CNN report, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth is suspected of blocking the promotion of a top Navy officer who would have become the first woman to lead the Navy SEALs. Her career is now over. For Hegseth's critics, it's another example of, let's just say, his distaste for women in the military. As a Marine veteran, what would you tell a young woman who wants to go to one of the academies or wants to enlist and make a career in the military? Would you advise her to pursue that path?
Well, this is a horrible situation that he has put our military in, not just women. Because you want the best and brightest, right? And when you are drawing for the best and brightest, that means, regardless of race and gender. I used to be the chairman of Intel Special Operations, so I had oversight and planning and budgeting over special operations in warfare, naval warfare too. It is a very complicated type of job. It's not just what we understand in terms of trigger pulling, and me as being a trigger puller in the Marines. This woman was most qualified. She would be able to lead the Navy SEALs and special operations to where they need to go to meet the demand of China and other issues. What this is going to do is going to take not necessarily the person that's just joining the military now, but that mid-range officer who has to make a decision. He or she's going to stay in to try to keep going higher, or they're just going to leave and go make a lot of money in the private sector. Because these men and women are so well trained, they're sought after by the private sector. And now we're going to lose some great people that we invested a lot of money because they don't want to deal with that humiliation.
And again, for those young women maybe coming out of high school right now,
I will never. I tell people all the time, I would never regret ever serving my country. It is, and I had, as you know, I had a very rough tour. Lost my best friends in war, and still to this day, I'm a better person for it. I believe everyone should be giving back to the country one way or the other. You'll never regret, giving time and service to your country.
I get this question a lot. Why do you think President Trump hasn't dispatched ICE to Phoenix in the size we've seen in Chicago and other cities?
It's a really good question. I think, number one, it's a swing state. I think he's very politically astute in terms of what this can do. He does recognize that this is politically harmful to his brand and to Republicans. What we saw in other states were Latinos swinging from Trump supporters to Democratic support over the span of just 7 months because of how overt and discriminatory his practices are right now. I mean, they're using racial profiling, something that Arizonans are very much used to, or used to be used to under Sheriff Joe Arpaio. I think that the resistance he would get here would be very different from the resistance that he has gotten everywhere, because you do have a big group of people that are that know how to organize and fight back if he tries to do things of that nature here.
So you think he knows that and maybe might not even try anything during the election year next year to help out a Republican candidate?
You can never put anything past him. I hope that he understands that using government to help out his political cause is something that should be beneath the president. But I also believe in Arizonans, and I think Arizonans are very smart, Democrats, Republicans, Independents, and they would not fall prey to his type of quote-unquote leadership.
What, if anything, has your office heard from the Latino community here, from immigration lawyers here, about what is going on the ground?
Well, they're still worried because there are people that are being taken that are here but had different type of orders and protections, right? But they're not doing it at the scale that they're doing it in other places. We have people that can't have zero knowledge about where their family is. They have zero knowledge of what's happening at the detention centers, right? And we go visit detention centers.
Congresswoman Yasmin Ansari has been going down to Eloy for one woman in particular.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so we've been doing the same too, and we'll be doing another one this week or whether it's next week. But it should not be difficult to get that type of information. If your loved one is being detained by the federal government or any government, you should know where they are, what their status is, and they should be given due process. And that's largely what we've been hearing from our friends, advocates, and the legal community.
The president this past week issued a blanket pardon for the defendants in Arizona's fake electors case and similar cases around the country. Rudy Giuliani among them, Mark Meadows among them. Now, they were charged in state court, and presidential pardons don't apply to state court. Why do you think Trump did this?
Well, because Trump wants to do two things. Number one, he wants people to forget the January 6th insurrection that he led. And the people that were supportive of it. This is why he pardoned more than 1,500 of these insurrectionists, people that literally were grabbing flagpoles and beating police officers, people that grabbed the police officer's taser and tased them repeatedly almost to death, people that crushed a police officer in a door where you heard him screaming and crying for help because he was personally being pushed to a limit. For a party and for a president that claims he's pro-cop, he just let a bunch of cop beaters out. And now he wants to allow the people that are the legal background for all of this. So that way he can go back in 2026, if he wants to challenge 2026, and encourage people to keep fighting. Because guess what? You saw what happened to the guys in 2020, 2026. If you stay with me, you'll be safe.
So you think he is laying the groundwork for something similar in 26 as what we saw in 2020?
I think you have to be ready for this president to do anything. And, you don't release 1,500 insurrectionists, hundreds of which were involved in beating police officers out into the streets, and then the legal minds behind everything, and then think that he's not going to turn around and try to use them again in 2026. What does that look like? I don't know. But the best defense against that is for us to be ready, for us to have an overwhelming victory so it doesn't change the trajectory. But you have to be ready and prepared what he may be doing.
Let's jump ahead to 2028. And on that,
Okay.
there's a new style developing in Democratic politics. I think maybe you reflecting it. It's kind of the rougher, saltier language.
Okay, first of all, you've known me for 20 years. I've always been this way.
I'm not saying it's not genuine.
Okay, all right, good.
Yes. But, you know, typically politicians have restrained that. John McCain was a pretty salty character himself.
He was. I was on the receiving of a lot of John McCain initiatives.
Is that the new tone of our politics? Should it be the new tone?
No, I think the new tone should be for you to be authentic to yourself. And John
Okay,
McCain.
well.
Yeah, but you know, some of these people aren't being authentic. And I also think, like, because you're willing to fight, you also have to be ready to compromise. And one of the things I do value about me and my Republican colleagues in the Senate is that sometimes, yeah, we go at it. You know, we'll go at it and we will bust each other's heads. But the next issue that is something that is beneficial to Arizonans or to America in general, we will sit down and we will compromise. I hope that's where this is actually going. I think the inauthentic, let's just fight all the time but not get anything done is not good for this country. If you're fighting because that's just the nature of who you are, and you're doing it for the right causes, but then when you see the opportunity to break bread, then also be willing and able to do that. And John McCain was that type of person too.
He was, but I gotta tell you, all I see now is let's fight. It's go time.
I mean, I think as of recently, because of the shutdown, that's the case.
How do you?
But there are things that you don't see sometimes. You know, for example, I wrote a big package along with Democrats and Republicans for housing reform to try to bring more housing supply into it. It passed unanimously. When you have, Chairman Tim Scott, a very conservative person, Elizabeth Warren, writing a bill that all of us vote for, that is going to bring, hundreds of thousands of new homes, affordable homes to this country, that is a really good example of it. So it does exist, right? I work with Republican colleagues all the time. I'm also not afraid to fight them. And I think as long as you have that attitude, I think that's a good benefit to the country as a whole.
Is Gavin Newsom the front runner for 2028?
Is he the front runner? I think he's one of the front runners. I mean, he's pretty popular.
We'll end it there. Give thanks for our members of Congress working together, and I wish you a happy Thanksgiving, you and your growing family.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, Brahm.